Great, and thank you for being here today. My name is Catarina Sandoval. I go by Cata. I work for the city of Albuquerque, and Deanna's gonna be helping me as we run this meeting together, and thank you for being here.
Yes, welcome to our new board chair. We're very excited to have the city chairing our board this year. Or, yeah.
All right, and we do have a quorum,
Yeah,
correct?
we do.
Thank you for bearing with me as I learn, practice the Robert's Rules of Order. And is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. And a vote? Do we have to vote on that?
I think we do.
Okay, I'll take
All
those. All those, oh, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Or do I have to say their name?
No.
All those opposed, and then no one says anything, and then you go, oh, motion passes.
Thank you. All those opposed? Motion passes.
Maybe someday somebody should oppose it just to keep her on her toes.
Spoken like a true high schooler. You take me back to my high school teacher days. All right, and then the minutes. Do folks need
There
time
is
to
a
look
copy
at
of,
the
yes,
minutes?
there's a copy in your packet if we need a minute to look at the minutes.
All right, minutes are in.
the minutes. Okay.
Their motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. A little bit better.
Good job. Quick study.
All right. And the next item on the agenda is Community Schools in Action. And of course, I told Deanna, I'm very happy to see my elementary school on here. I'm super excited to hear about it, Valle Vista.
Yes, yeah, we are very excited to highlight two community schools this month. So Marie Hughes Elementary School and Valle Vista, your alma mater, and I believe the coordinator for Marie Hughes is here. I don't see Valle Vista at the moment, maybe he's on his way. Those of you who were at the last board meeting, Superintendent Blakey mentioned the need to take family engagement out to where families are. So having a dual approach to welcoming families into schools, but also going to where families are. And so Nikki, the community school coordinator, want to raise your hand? Yeah, at Marie Hughes did just that. And she went to the Paradise Hills Easter egg hunt and kindergarten and brought kindergarten registration with her to.
So sweet.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
so
great.
thank you. Do you want to say a couple words about your experience?
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. The director at Paradise Hills Community Center was fantastic and very opening and had led his team wonderfully. We had a lot of families coming up asking stuff about what is a school? Is it a charter? What is a community school? So it was a great platform to share about the initiatives that community schools do across the city and the county, but then also inviting them to our space and having registrations and QR codes for them to do that. As we know, enrollment is down for APS. So we took this initiative for that, but met some great families. It was just a fun event where community engagement happened in one place. So looking forward to see some of the outcomes from that.
Thank you for that example, Nikki.
And so I have a question. As you meet as community school coordinators, that then sparks ideas and we get kindergarten registration in all the neighborhoods through our community school connections. Oh, so smart.
Yep. So thank you for that, taking that initiative and letting us share that today. And then our second highlight this month is, look at how adorable these little cardboard lowriders. It is so cute. So it was the Route 66 pit stop at Valle Vista. So they made these cardboard box cars, and it was part of their dual language initiative as a school and really bringing this culture that is around in the South Valley around cars and just pride of their culture. And so they strengthened community and family engagement, brought lots of folks together, created a lot of new bonds, and the kids obviously were so excited to share their artwork in their adorable little cars that they made. So
I did, Stephen, so that's part of what Stephen wrote is on the screen, but there's like a really wonderful narrative that he also wrote. So I'm gonna pass that.
Oh,
around. So
perfect.
that's
Thank
all
you, thank you,
Read
thank
that on your own.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that, Chloe. Oh, yeah, I see that they also brought vintage cars, real cars, for the students to enjoy. So one of the, there are a couple of key practices, 6 of them for community schools. So powerful student and family engagement is one, but connecting to the classroom and a culture of belonging is another, those are 2 others. And so this really demonstrates all 3 of those, right? Where we really reached into the community and celebrated the culture of the community, brought it into an experience in the classroom with them doing their art, and then sharing it back out with the with the community and with families. So just a really great example from Via Vista. Any other comments from the board?
I'll just say the importance of being able to do this kind of activity. I mean, if we're talking about Martinez Yazzie and meeting students' needs, our students are perfectly capable of getting skills, but if they don't have purpose and meaning, it doesn't matter. It means nothing. And the amount of literacy and numeracy that goes into an activity like that, that's engaging. So I hope people just really do 2 things. One is, and this sort of goes along with the going out to the community, how APS schools really are working to meet students' needs with creativity and excitement. And it's happening at every school, not just magnets, not just 1 or 2 schools, but the importance of those kinds of activities and what it means. is
Right, thank you for
critical.
that. Thank you.
So just make a plug for, coming from out of school time world back in the day. While high dosage tutoring is great for those that need specific things somewhere, there's evidence everywhere that things like this do exactly what you said, Barbara. And when we swing the pendulum to everything being specific to high dosage tutoring, tutoring this, academic, kids are not getting the opportunity to apply all of the things that are required to create a mini car or write their experience down or apply what they've learned and seen. And organizations like Boys and Girls Club, Explora, other nonprofits that are working in the out of school time, they're always going to follow suit to some extent of where the money goes. And when we make decisions to only invest the money in the things that look like it's going to change a test score, rather than fun things that actually embed learning in children's experience, that is what we're going to end up with. And kids are not going to get those experiences.
So mic drop. Thank you for saying that. I think we all need to start advocating in our various circles that enrichment is remediation. Enriching activities, that is remediation when you totally engage and apply the skills, just like the 2 of you just said. And I hope that we can take that message to a state level, because we really need to turn around that early childhood experience that has become over-tested, inappropriately tested, and turn it into the way kids learn. And so thank you for that, both of you.
And thank you for, I was going to point out on the bottom of the screen, all the partners that participated in this project, which is again, a very important role of a community school impact coordinator, right? Is coordinating events like this and bringing these community partners that have so much value to add to these experiences and really closely working and celebrating with the school. So, yeah, so congratulations again to both of those community school impact coordinators that we are recognizing today. And we look forward to sharing more highlights with you next month.
And I'm new to this group, so I'm like, this is awesome. And I would love to figure out, like, is there a way that we're already highlighting this on all of our, all of our media to say, like, this is what's going on. Like, this is the way to bring people back to APS instead of, private
charters.
school or charters or whatever it is. I mean, this is great stuff going on here. So we need to figure out how to highlight it on a regular basis so that people are seeing, like, this is what's happening, not only like on all of those, all of our avenues. So, Brian, I
was just gonna say.
he looks like he's ready.
That is so important to connect with the stories we tell about APS are these stories.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate the opportunity to just add just a little bit, and I think we still need to do a better job, but really recognition to ABC Community School Partnership along with our community school impact coordinators in the fact that earlier this year, we cultivated a database of stories that the communication department gets to navigate and pull from based upon, you know, some of the needs that are out there in terms of messaging and communication. And so thanks to our community school impact coordinators that are submitting these stories, and many of our coordinators are, what are you all called with the communications department?
Good news ambassador.
Good news ambassadors, where they submit stories to communications. And then those stories come into that department, and that department then is ensuring that those stories are told. And the latest piece that I think is really important is sometimes the community school strategy is not always mentioned in the story. And what's really important, based upon our pioneers and my mentors who have impressed it upon me, please make sure that everybody knows that that particular school is a community school. And so that's more traction that we want to build as well. So
Great.
that's where we're at right now, and let's keep going with your help.
Great.
Is there a way we can join in that as like all the entities, like city, county? How do we push the same information that you're pushing in comms at APS or this community school?
Great
What a
opportunity.
great question.
I think if you would, you or not you. City council folks.
Oh, yeah.
If you, city folks, if you want to connect your communications, people to me, we will see how we can, work together. And because I think on the county side as well, you know, we could work on, I think that's a great idea. And Ruben has already generously offered, to highlight things, with Johnny boards.
Yeah, we also have the city community centers and the
Yeah.
county community.
The
Yeah.
board,
Where we get information on,
our best feed.
yeah, so we
It
have
needs to be a connected.
one
effort.
contact manager from you guys.
And I think it's even as easy as whoever's managing your social media for the ABC schools, if you add our entities as as collaborators to that
Collaborators.
post,
Yeah.
it'll automatically go to our comms people. And they'll hit review. We just need to let them know we're gonna do that, and so that they can accept it. And then it'll automatically go to all of our pages. We don't have to coordinate with each other. Just have our comms people add all of us to that post.
That's a great idea.
Then it automatically goes out.
Hashtag one Albuquerque.
There we go. Truly,
That's a hashtag.
truly one opportunity.
So
Not
to
just the
point
name.
out, should,
Thank you.
should you and I, how do we, what are the next steps to make sure that we're doing that for
I
all
think-
the collaborators?
I think maybe just all of us send our contact information for our comms folks, like for council, it's our PIO, the mayor's comms guy. He just has now, I think, doing it on that page too.
Yep.
And then the same for the county folks and
Yep.
just
So we just
send
can-
your
Send it to me.
contact
Yeah,
information.
send it to me and then we'll connect. I also was wondering, Brian, if now that we're doing these highlights at the board meetings, if we could send these stories as well.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Okay, in case,
Please.
I mean, I'm sure the coordinators are already doing it, but let's make sure that they get there. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
With APS, whoever's working with K and W, I think it would be good to share these kinds of stories, because right now they're running magnet schools, which is fine. I'd rather it be magnets than charters on the one hand, but on the other hand, it completely ignores what's going on just in every neighborhood school. So if we could coordinate, whoever has that tie with the public service announcements with K and W, and maybe even outreaching to KUNM.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, let's
To
ask.
start
yeah.
cycling through stories about
KAN.
stuff like this.
We need it. We need the positive stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
We
That
need
is
it so
really
general,
true.
like we need this stuff, like people need it. We need it out there.
I love that. I love that comment because it does feel like some things are fracturing in communities, and being able to demonstrate how communities are coming together in a positive way is, you're right, that is such a great story. I'll reach out to Dean Goodrich as well about KUNM, since we had to excuse him today.
And did all the board members get the written narrative about Vista? Okay, excellent. All right, and so we'll follow up and make sure our PIOs and communication folks are connected to you, Deanna.
Yep.
And next on our agenda is our role in this work, and Deanna's gonna take us through several discussion items. Some of them we'll vote on, but Deanna.
Great, thank you so much, Madam Chair. So we did introduce last month this concept of our role in this work. And there was a recommendation from Barbara Peterson that we make some adjustments to it. And so we made those adjustments. Thank you for that recommendation. And our goal is to highlight or frame our meetings around one or more of these monthly, so that we can demonstrate how we as a backbone organization are fulfilling our role in the work of collective impact. And so what we're going to talk about today is not the most exciting one, but it is timely just based on deadlines. So it's aligning strategic funding. And we do have two discussion items related to aligning strategic funding. So the first one that we're going to briefly discuss is the Community School Impact Coordinator salary funding streams. So hopefully you are aware that the city, the county, and the district as a whole and schools all contribute to funding community school impact coordinator salaries. And so we have community school impact coordinators, I'm just gonna say coordinators from now on, it's a lot of words, who have multiple funding streams attached to their salaries. So there's a lot of coordination that happens on our level to make those things happen. There are three-way contracts involved, there are scopes of work involved. One of the things 2 years ago we did that we're very proud of is aligned all the scopes of work so that we weren't asking coordinators to do multiple reporting based on their funding streams. And then the New Mexico Public Education Department, way back in 2019, created a grant program to support the implementation and development of community schools across the state. And the funding for the grant program has kind of shifted. It's been up and down and all over the place since 2019. This year, and I did mention this last month, but I know some folks weren't here, there was a significant shift in the funding at the state level. Instead of it being a legislative appropriation directly out of the general fund, it is now coming out of the Public Education Reform Fund, PERF. And what's really great about PERF is that it is for 3 years. It's $6 million for a year for 3 years. So we no longer have to try and, convince legislators to make an appropriation to the fund. There is money there for the next 3 years. One of the agreements, though, that happened at the state level around this funding is that every school that receives this funding must participate in it was called a randomized control trial, which we talked about last month, and Gabriella, Superintendent Blakey, was like, how are we going to find peers? And she was absolutely right. And so they actually removed that language from House Bill 2. So now it's just a trial, and it is an evaluation. And so we plan to apply as a district very strategically. We, the backbone organization here, plan to braid and blend our funding. So what we want to do, and what you see here, is we will take the city money, the county money, the money that APS gives as a district, the money that APS schools allocate from their budgets, and combine it with the PED grants in order to completely fund all of the community school impact coordinator salaries. So we have to apply for these grants. That's the big yellow piece right there. It's about $1.2 million total. That's 25 schools. PED agreed last year to give APS a block grant. So we apply, every school has to submit an application, but the money comes as one big block. And then because we're not applying for the same amount for every school, it depends on what our braid looks like, if that makes sense to you. So here's the piece that we need to talk about. Any school that is funded through this money, as I said, has to participate in this trial. The trial is going to be extra work for these schools. There's just no way around it. If you look at the discussion draft of an MOU, which we are not voting on today, we're just discussing. What I attempted to do in this MOU was outline how the city, the county, and the district could work together to support all schools, but very specifically these schools that are awarded this funding with their additional obligations that come with the evaluation. The obligations are on page 2, section 3. Where it starts with all parties acknowledge that NMPED community school grant funding is subject to FERC evaluation requiring ongoing implementation monitoring, data collection and reporting, continuous improvement cycles, and demonstrated outcomes over time. And then the outcome areas that they're required to report on are the bullet points underneath. Attendance is the big focus. Attendance is the one that they are going to be looking at the most. But what we need these schools to be able to demonstrate is that all of the things that they did as community schools as part of their strategy impacted attendance and reduced chronic absenteeism and how it did that. So that is a narrative that we will need to support them with. Academic performance is another one that they're going to be looking at. Student engagement, that's student engagement, and they're looking specifically at out of school time. School climate and belonging, like we just had some great examples. Behavior outcomes, specifically a reduction in behavior incidents in these community schools. Access to integrated supports for students and families, increased family engagement, and the strength of their partnerships. So those are all of the things that these schools will have to report on. Not all of these are things that, I mean, many of the schools are already gathering data on this. We are not aware yet of what the reporting mechanism will look like. But what we are asking is if, as in our role with strategic funding and as a backbone organization and including the county staff who support community schools, if we could talk about how we can align to support this. So that's all I have to say.
I have so many questions. These outcomes that we have to measure. That's for APS and all community schools that get state money across the state.
Correct.
And are we anticipating that the PED is going to design the measurement tool?
Yes.
And are we anticipating that it will be all quantitative or will it also be qualitative?
I think it will be both.
And is there a way, or maybe I would suggest that if we have to use a state tool to measure, I don't know how you measure student engagement, whatever.
Attendance at an events. different
Right.
events,
But
Anecdotes.
I have
those like.
Survey, let's just give them another.
Mm.
Sorry, I need to not be sarcastic.
Can do that.
Panorama can tell us all of this information.
well, my point is just that can we have conversations for Albuquerque community schools about how we don't have to double do some of this stuff. So if, yeah, I mean, I really want to work with the office of everything that has numbers. And accountability and really talk about braiding, not funding, but braiding activities so that, you know, one thing we keep track of can be used for another thing we keep track of, or we can morph the way we're keeping track of something to match this so that we don't, I mean, the worst thing to happen is what happens so often, and that is we have attendance reporting requirements, and then we have to turn around and do it completely different in these schools and do it again. So to sit down with Chris and
Great suggestion.
all the important people that do this and really have just one thing. I think I've said it already.
And to make sure teachers and coordinators are part of that discussion.
Yeah, exactly, because what we imagine is something you can do easily in the middle of a busy instructional day is often not true and not easy.
And I'll just jump in too, because I think of things like when the original goals and guardrails were developed, which is a whole nother discussion, in my opinion, but nevertheless, there it is. And we talked over and over and over again about how the social, emotional, mental health engagement part had to weigh absolutely equal to or heavier than the quantitative Amira or whatever the, the academic testing that we're putting on these kids is. And yet, watching board meetings, what ends up and what comes from the district over and over again is, despite all of that, the thing that's right there are those test scores. And instead of leading with this kind of, looking at the kind of engagement at Marie Hughes or Valle Vista. And so anything, I mean, I don't think we have a model within New Mexico right now to really measure quantitative data
Well-being.
effectively. But someone out there somewhere, beyond doing one more numerical, I mean, Panorama it's just no different in terms of what it measures than Amira is. Doing something that's actually meaningful, finding a tool that can be used that really and truly is different from answering a survey or taking a test on your Chrome. I can't even remember now.
Couple of things so that as, at least the city, the county and APS could do elected ones. Is one, so we have the Southwest Institute for Community Schools, SWIFT, that we all created before, prior, as a side deal to support the whole state. We still have that. Tim Hand and Edward Tavero are now the co-directors of that for us, and they are working diligently on this process and making sure that they're communicating with the legislative body on how this works. The reality is still that legislators across the state want these numbers, and we're gonna get stuck in the middle. Like, I know, Kata very much knows that. So I think there's that reality, but the other side of this is, this is a 3-year grant, which means we can't be turning left every 4 seconds. And that has consistently been a problem with implementation of community schools in the folks on the ground who are implementing. When every year there's a new focus and a new path that community school coordinators and principals, community school impact, speaking of left, coordinators, are being expected to support and turn. So one of those things is that whatever we do with this, we have to get everyone on the same page to commit to that for 3 years. Because the other reality that Deanna didn't mention is the city and the county, while not contributing a huge sum of money anymore, are also going to run out of money at some point to contribute, which is still going to put a huge dent. We need these dollars to end up above the line, which Kata also started years ago when she was at PED. We need this to work so that we can move this money above the line for sustainability purposes. And then we can focus on the service components with other flexible dollars that the city and the county and others have.
So, what we're all talking about is taking something we have to do and doing it better than we usually do it.
Yes.
And one of the things I'd like to suggest is to work with Kenny Salazar. The union and the district are working very hard to implement a few schools at a time in a deep and appropriate way, restorative practices. Restorative practices has a lot to do with the culture of the school, the behavior of the students, and it changes things if we do it right. And Kenny and I are trying very hard to do it right with all of our different practitioner partners. So we need something that supports the ongoing efforts to switch our schools from this behavior mod approach, you know, you have a consequence or a reward, to something that really shifts the culture in a deep way, and that's what we're trying to do. So it seems like school climate and belonging, behavior outcomes, possibly integrated supports and family engagement, all of those things. We should be looking at, are you a pilot school and are you trying to create a restorative approach at your school? And is what we're already measuring in a restorative, or at least starting to be restorative school, better or worse than somebody who's not implementing restorative
I mean,
approaches?
these are new. These are all aligned with community schools forward. Like, we should be looking at all of these, like every one of
Right,
our
but what I
schools, right?
wanna say is, let's double data.
Yeah.
If we have data,
Right.
let's
Yeah.
look at the
Let's
comparison.
use the good,
Yeah.
I mean, like, well collected, not that it's good or bad data, but data that's focused and intentionally.
Looking at other initiatives that will change these
Absolutely.
indicators for the better, so that we know where we need to double down and whether it's
But we also
working.
need to invest, I'm sorry.
No,
That's
that's
fine.
fine.
We also need to invest, because the other thing that we are doing as entities is we are dumping dollars into things that don't align with the community school strategy. And we are looking at them one-off because we're all siloing and we have 52 different committees that everybody sits on together. And if we look at this strategic alignment of funding, if we as entities that are putting lots of money into services as well, are looking at what is the data telling us that is going to restorative work? Where is our opioid funding going? Where is our, behavioral health GRT funding going? Where is our the homelessness prevention funding going? What are we aligning our urban ag and alleyways programmatic funding? We have all these programmatic funds that are not necessarily aligned, because I'm getting all of these things across my desk and I'm like, why is there not a community school listed here? And there are 4 community schools in the report that I'm seeing, and not a one of them says anything about a council, a community school, or data. And that's stuff that I oversee. And I see the funding that goes, we look at Crossroads funding. The push to have a Crossroads counselor in a community school that's also a restorative practice pilot, and aligning their work to that effort. Like, we have that, everybody sitting at this table has the influence to align our investments in these efforts. If the people sitting at this table also inform the people making those decisions with our entities to do something like that. And the ABC team and Brian have the data to help us make those decisions if we open that door. What I find difficult in where I sit now is that those conversations are happening one-off outside of collaborative efforts that align with community schools at all. And we have 75 community schools. It's not like it used to be where we're talking about a small number of schools and it would be unfair or inequitable. Now it's huge, and they're in the neighborhoods that need them the most. So I guess my ask would be that as we're looking at something like this and an agreement like this, that our entities also make a commitment to work in a more intentional mechanism and not say, oh, that's community schools versus this is our effort.
So I feel like when you're talking, Danette, I want like a work study session where, we put up a big piece of Velcro and we say, okay, here's a community school. And here's the county, and how many different things need to be purposely connected, and we have little pieces of
You know, you
yarn.
speak my love language now. What is on my go?
But somehow, like, I cannot picture. So alignment and connections.
Yeah.
And not silos. I can picture the silos you're talking about. I understand APS deeply. I know we work in silos all the time. And that we're all trying to make connections between the silos. But there's so many different silos that we all have knowledge about. I can't picture it yet. I need.
Oh, we've
I
done
don't
it.
know.
We've done it on the local government coordinating council. We made APS a voting member on that, and that's the board that sits with city council, county commission, and APS. APS wasn't a voting member on that board. We made APS a voting member on that board. I was the chair when we did the opioid settlement dollars. It was hard, and I'll be honest, it was hard to get APS, the particular board members that were listed on that during that time, to actually bring us the data and the information about the Crossroads program so we could fund it. And we were able to get them to do it. They brought us all of the information and we were able to get APS funded for those Crossroad programs through the opioid settlement dollars. And that's alignment, like them coming and saying, this is what we need to be able to expand that program into middle schools and high schools, not just high schools, but also middle schools. And that amounted to $3 million going to APS from our joint opioid settlement dollars. And so we could do this, we've done it, but I think the biggest thing is we as a board need to understand how much each entity is actually paying into this program. That was one of the first things I looked up to see how much each entity has been contributing. And I think that we need to know, as a board, is how much is each entity kicking in right now. Because when I'm looking it up, it says, and I don't know if this is correct because I just Googled it, but APS $750,000 to the program. City of Albuquerque, 1.4 million, which is what it says in the resolution. I just looked at our FY 27 budget. It's 1.4. We added some funding, about 60,000 or so to the 1.4, to make it higher. Bernalillo County, this doesn't include staff support, says 500,000. The state PED, it says 1.2 million. And then it doesn't say what for federal and private philanthropy dollars that go to the program. So I would like to request a breakdown of how much each entity is kicking in, so we can have a real true conversation about what the braiding needs to be. And then when it comes to restorative justice stuff, I've worked with APS, tried to work with APS in the Black community specifically around this. And it still has on your website a resolution from APS that says, we want to do restorative justice, but it says clearly here, the New Mexico legislature, we call on them to create a policy that enables us as school climate leaders and school police departments to identify evidence-based implementation processes for schools to include training and restorative practices. So we're saying to the legislature, y'all tell us how to do it before we really try to dig in.
Does that have a year on
It does, but it doesn't. But when I Google APS restorative practices, that's the first thing that comes up. Now, I know you have, because I've worked with you all on this, I know you have a department and you have people tied to this process, which is a good step forward, right? But we're not, I'd love to know who are the practitioners we're working with on that, on the restorative justice. Because for the Black community, we're not feeling it. We're not feeling the restorative practices for our community. So I love
And
that.
I feel like that was written, I don't know.
It's pretty horrifying. I don't
That's
recognize.
old.
That's
But-
the first thing that pops up though, and I understand that, but what I'm saying is my lived experience and my experience over the last 10 years in the Black community, trying to work with APS on restorative practices. Like, I love to hear you, and what I'm not trying to be negative, what I'm saying is this is a good thing that you specifically in the union are talking about this and pushing the district to do better.
So
Mhm.
just so you know, everybody on the board,
Yeah.
for many years, 5 to 10 years, we've negotiated language to move forward in making sure that our district is well-versed in restorative practices, has the supports, that it's not just a phrase
Yeah.
that gets pushed. In general, over the years, teachers and practitioners have struggled with student behavior and asked for help and then gotten this, oh, we're restorative, so I'm not,
Mhm.
you know, it's like, so then it became a bad phrase
Connotation
as
for
an
the teachers,
an
yeah.
excuse rather than a real thing.
Yeah.
But last year, we finally started working together after many false starts, and Kenny Salazar got Kellogg money. And found these people out of Colorado, their company is RJ Ed.
Mhm.
And there are schools throughout APS that have committed to at least a cadre of people, along with the administration, for 4 days of training. And I have gone to 7 million professional development sessions in my career. And I actually thought this was so good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. It's good.
I'm
to
a
hear.
hard sell.
Yeah.
So the quality of what's happening is different. The dedication to what is happening is different. We're changing contract language to include restorative approach. We're working on it.
Good.
So that, my job is to say, Kenny, you gotta get something on the website.
Yeah, and take that off. for
Yeah.
Sure. And then the last other, and then look, I think that's why I love the ABC School Board. That's why I love what ABC Schools does. Because I think we in the ABC community schools, I think are trying and doing the work to implement the stuff into the schools. Through their, impact coordinators. But on the data piece, I looked, just looked up at the data dashboard in APS. And there's already a tab here for, behavior, there's a tab for academic performance, there's a tab already for parent and student engagement. So I think maybe there's a way that the APS data folks can give us a dashboard like this, pulling out specifically the school, community school data separately so that we can kind of compare. And that they should be able to easily do that by pulling out the data that's already here on their dashboard. But yeah, and you can go in and you can edit you can manipulate the data. I use this dashboard all the time to look at my school's performance and different things. But I think the data is already here. We should just ask them to pull out a dashboard specific to.
Yep.
I think.
branded schools.
Yeah, exactly, the branded schools, so that we can, then we'll be able to really look at the outcomes and look at the comparative to other schools.
Time, Deanna, right, between the application of the grants and like whether or not we get them to really hash out what this
Yes,
MOA
thi-
or MOU.
yes,
could
we will not
discuss so that
be
we can
voting
support
on
these
this
schools
MOU.
consistently for 3 years across.
Yes,
the-
correct. We will have
Okay.
time to.
Cause I
but-
know, I'm sorry,
Speaking
we've
of
got a
time-
discussion that has more time sensitive.
Yes.
stuff going on, right? So,
Yes.
sorry.
But thank you for the robust comments.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. Like Deanna said, we've got time. We're not voting on this today, but we wanted to start the discussion. I'd like us to move to the next agenda item, which does require some votes, but we're gonna work with APS in terms of that data piece.
Thank you. There's a 3-year roadmap that is needing to either be published on websites and or presented to this board. And so I'll recommend to the
Yeah.
Madam Chair and the Director of the board that be given some time so that there's clarity
Perfect.
moving forward.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll work with you on that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item is a voting item. There's a little bit of a history document there for you around what's known as EMSI in the city. Stands for Elementary Middle School Initiative. I'm not gonna read this whole entire history, but I did have some fun on the internet putting this together. So the critical information to know is that, and actually Councilor Rogers, you brought this exact thing up, that around the late 2000s, the city for many, many years had been looking at middle and high school initiatives to support students. And $1.5 million was renamed as EMSI. And in 2012, the 1.5 million was allocated to 21 schools. There were 10,000 students participating. And there was a study, and the links are down here, and I did send this out in the board packet. So if you want to click on those links in the PDF I sent you, you can. That showed that it wasn't actually being utilized very efficiently. And so in 2012, this resolution was passed by the city council that gave the ABC Community School Partnership, according to the Joint Powers Agreement, programmatic oversight of that funding. It was actually, I think, reduced to 1.4 million at that time, in 2012. And this is another 3-way contract that exists between the city, the county, and APS, because the funding flows from the city to APS, but because we are housed in the county as the ABC Community School Partnership support staff, the county is involved in that contract as well. So we create a scope of work, we have deliverables that are required. This funding goes to the funding opportunity goes to all schools. It's not just restricted to community schools. We currently have 55 schools that are funded. The majority of them are elementary schools. The majority of the funding also goes to elementary schools.
And I think it's important to note that the 241 that goes to coordinators came out of, is a carve out from the
Yes.
original number.
Yes,
That
that's
was
right, in the
out of
reduction.
time. Yeah, as well as the carve out for the larger programs. So when we look at the total balance, that's not exactly what's available for out of.
For out of school
clubs.
time.
So just
Yep.
to make that clear.
Thank you for reminding me about that. So if you look on page 3 of the history document, under the 2020s to 2026 from EMSI to OST, we shifted the name to OST, out of school time, because nobody knew what EMSI stood for, and it was confusing. A long time ago, I don't remember exactly when, maybe 2014, I don't remember, but there was a competitive process introduced to try to encourage schools to, as they applied for this funding, to demonstrate community school principles in action, including, and we still push on this very hard, student surveys. Because we know that when students are engaged and the activities they do are responsive to that, they are much more likely to attend. There's so much data out there around how out of school time and expanded learning increases attendance, especially in middle schools. Students want to be there for activities and to see their friends. I want to point out that the second bullet point in 2026 is actually incorrect, and that's my fault. The contract does actually contain this amount, 807,737, but I printed the email for you where the city council, when they finalized their budget, they actually reduced it a little bit. So it's 720,637. So it's slightly less than the 807. It's about half of what was initially allocated, just to the, we know as budgets tighten, that's what happens. Now, here's the good news. The state has introduced new funding for out of school time, most notably in the universal childcare out of ECECD. So for our providers like Boys and Girls Club, RGC, Community for Learning, whoever else is out there, they are able to draw down state funding to provide free care for those children in elementary schools. This funding cuts off at the age of 12. The other new funding stream that's been introduced is in House Bill 2, $20 million is set aside in House Bill 2 this year for out of school time funding. And districts can apply for that, nonprofits can apply for that, government entities can apply for that funding. And so here's our proposal. We would like to propose that the city, the county, and APS work together to revise how the EMSI funding is used. We would like to propose that the city funding be used for middle schools and high schools. We would continue the existing carve-outs that Danette mentioned, so the middle school soccer league would continue. There's $200,000 that goes to that. Esports, which is existing for grades K to 12. And our high school Shark Tank, which many of you participated in this year. And we would like to work closely as the city, the county, and APS with the district on designing a comprehensive out of school time program where the elementary school funding and supports are provided through the ECECD funds and through the OST funds at the state level and through the Play Plus program at the city, so that there are no gaps at all in elementary schools having opportunities. It may not be every single day like a provider, but there could be clubs and activities, and we can support as the oversight backbone, creating those partnerships with APS and the schools to provide those activities that schools and students, you need to step up.
I do
Yeah,
have to go. I have to
of
catch a
course.
plane, but my vote is yes.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Budson.
Thank you.
The EMSI OST money would then shift to a stronger focus on middle schools and high schools. And so as the mayor's representative, Director Sandoval, if you want to make any comments about how the mayor might feel about shifting the money to middle schools.
I know that two of our departments, Youth and Family Services and Parks and Rec in particular, we internally have already been looking at middle schools and supporting middle schools more. We know that's an age group where they need some extra support. They really do. And so I think I can go back to our teams and take this proposal and get their feedback, but so I can't definitively
Yeah,
say yes,
of
but I
course.
know internally the city's been looking at middle school as a.
Now, the
This is good.
deadline for the OST application is April 24th.
When,
Just a comment.
is that tomorrow?
No,
Close.
2 weeks.
So,
I think a lot about what are the existing resources, assets and community. I always wonder why, if we have an inventory of programs, and I think I've asked that question before. And I will tell you that there are lots of resources out in the community. We're doing something, just telling Counselor about a program we're doing in District 2. There are so many organizations, there's so many nonprofits, and we're bringing them all together to expose kids to these existing programs and resources. So if we don't have an inventory, if we don't know what's already happening out there, we're just throwing money away. We need to fill gaps. And we're doing this at almost zero money, very little money, right out of my DDF budget. Not necessarily involving the county, although they're kind of aware of it a little bit, but there are resources out there. My God, there's so many resources. I was just in shock. And that point came up earlier. And when I first came on board to the county, I was amazed at how many programs out there, how many good things, good people, programs, and projects that I described. And as somebody said, half the battle is to know about, and the other half is to publicize these programs, because a lot is already being done. So I would just advocate, we need to know, and we need to find out. And so that way we can really get a good, substantial results from the money that we looking to obtain and to spend.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think for me, it would help to, because now, are we talking about the budget right now? Like, of adding things to the budget that we have, that we're
No, what we
going
would,
through at the city now?
I don't think so. No, it would probably remain at the 720 amount. What we would be doing is just shifting it away from elementary schools to middle and high schools, and using the state money, the ECECD money, the OST money, and the Play Plus programs to fill the gaps for the elementary schools, because almost all elementary schools in APS have a provider already. They're almost all doing this.
But the universal childcare, it made it a lot easier for Boys and Girls Clubs and others to do a licensed program in the elementary sites, but the middle schools are hard because you can only get reimbursed up to 12 years old, and they're also far more difficult to license with any program that a middle school kid would want to go to. And therefore, like with this money, I personally ran a program in 1993 with this money. So, and for 14 years thereafter. And it was originally focused in middle schools only. Every middle school got like $67,000 in 1993 to engage middle school students after school.
I advocate for this. I think this is a good one. I know I just recently had a meeting with, I forget, it might be what you're seeing here, but it's Boys and Girls Club, Junior Achievement, Explora, they all come together.
Yeah.
And I absolutely think that it makes sense to maximize the use of funding, is what it is, right? Because you have the state is paying for these elementary school kids to be able to get this, hopefully the same, if not better, opportunities.
Yeah.
But then what are we gonna do? Instead of keep funneling more money there, how do we shift it? And that's what they had approached me about. And I absolutely agree that now that this is covered, let's just shift some of this over to grow it here so that all of this is covered.
Right, but then we have those same programs, closing programs. They got money from the city, they got money from the state, and they closed the programs in my district after they got funding. So I have a problem with us also giving them more money, and they closed programs. They closed the hub at Highland over the summer, they closed Jefferson, these are just things that and in the neighborhoods that need these things, they closed the programs. And so I think we need a bigger strategy when it comes to first, and I agree, we need to know what are we already spending all this money on? Cause I'm adding this up on our current budget that's in council right now. And it doesn't tell me what each of these is for. It says out of time school for just basically says ABC's community schools, out of time school, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times with different varying amounts. So I think even the contract that you do execute with the city for this money, that's where we put the changes that you want to make.
Yes.
But I think it would be just like we asked about the breakdown for how much everybody's kicking in. What are we already spending this money on?
Sure, I
Yeah.
have that, I can send it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think, to your point, we're also funding all of these other organizations for the same stuff.
The county is also
funding
I
the
think-
same org.
Yeah, we said. that-
So how about we look at who is, and same with the state, same with APS. Who are we already all funding across the board? And let's do an audit and figure out how to shift it to where it's actually amounting to programs kids want to go to and programs that are not going to be closed after we fund them.
Can I ask, when you say they closed and then you.
Boys and
listed-
Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club.
Oh, they are the.
Well,
Yeah, and they started
coalition of groups, only one of them is, Boys and Girls Club is the only one that actually has comprehensive programs on site, although they advocate, and you know, I love me some Colby, that's fine, and everything else, but they have a group of 5 and they are a coalition and they advocate for money to all of us. And
they
Boys and
don't
Girls
have a
Club
nonprofit.
is the only one that has comprehensive programs. So when we say we're gonna fund them, everybody else either has their own sites, like YMCA has a few, but mostly their own buildings. Everyone else does club-based or volunteer-based in the classroom. So really, we're paying for the boys, girls. So- And they,
that's
yeah,
who
they
they
stop
is.
services during the summer.
And they told, when I met with them, well, we have a nonprofit, and then when they didn't. So I also think we need to look at the folks that we're funding and what they're actually doing with the money. Because I don't feel like it's getting to the kids.
Yeah,
That's
and we
for
can
sure.
strengthen the programmatic oversight and the accountability piece.
Yeah.
There is an entire department in APS that is supposed to oversee these partnerships. So we can strengthen as part of this proposal, what that oversight and accountability looks like. We do meet monthly with the city on the city's piece, so we can just continue and strengthen those meetings.
Yeah, and maybe add the county.
Line, Counselor, like, I really think what you're saying, you know, the worst thing for everyone and the best thing for everyone is that we all talk together.
Yes.
And, you know, before, like years ago, we were a little stronger because there were just different players and departments, and we've all done a lot of shifting since then, where we've met regularly to talk about who we were funding, where and how.
Mhm.
So that there was none of the,
Right.
oh, the city's gonna do it. And I still do it because Kristen Jeffs and I email regularly. When anybody asks for money, I email her first and say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know, like, what kind of money are you actually giving? But we that's not a real good system. Having a better system where we're doing it, because I really, you know, Deanna's son works for Boys and Girls Club. You know, we have relationships in those places where we know the programs that are happening and what they're doing, and there are good stories there, but at the same time, I think it's our responsibility to know that we're not paying the same $4 for the same $1 of program.
Same kids.
Yeah,
same-
you know, and that we have it in that space. And the only way we do that is for all of us to talk
Yes.
and look at it. And again, like you
Audit
said, the
it.
workshop, Ellen, I mean, I would support applying for the money because I do
Yes.
think we should tap into that $20 million.
Yeah.
Universal childcare.
Is that a motion?
So here,
Yes.
If I can make just one comment, as I said earlier, we're not the only ones that have oversight concern. I mean, the legislators are very aware and I talk to them a lot, at least mine. And even above the legislature or my constituents, the public, they know and they talk about this stuff and they're seeing this money get spent, but not in an effective way, without accountability and without transparency. And if we think they're not aware, we are fooling ourselves.
Yes,
So to
absolutely.
not do this in a very effective, way and transparent and do the audit and know this, because all our commissioners, we all get hit up with our DDF fund, one after another, and then they've gone to the city and they've gone to these programs, and I'm all for these programs. They're good programs, a lot of them. But yeah, what are they gonna do with their money? There has to be some accountability. It's not just spending money, but spending it effectively.
And that it gets to the kids. This has to get to the kids, like the kid, like we need all I hear from kids, we're doing a lot of work at Wilson and Whittier, and all the kids are asking for is activities, things to do. That their parents can't afford to put them in and pay for things.
Absolutely.
And when I look for resources for that, it's hard to find. And it shouldn't be, knowing all this money that's going out, like you said.
and on that note, I'd like to clarify before we entertain motions that we're not changing the amount. The proposal is to shift it to middle school, and that will work for more clarity and accountability around that money. And on that note, any motion?
So move. Second.
Third.
All right, in favor of that action?
Aye.
Any no's? All right, motion. passed.
Critical.
Okay, and anything on this item
No,
otherwise?
we're gonna Ellen has an announcement, and we'll do this one next month, and then we'll adjourn.
Okay.
Oh,
Hi, everybody, I have an announcement. I announced to the union members that I'm retiring. And we have a president-elect, Sarah Haber.
Yay, hi, Sarah.
So I'm in my position till the end of June, and Sarah and I will be working on transitioning, and
And then you're in Barbados after that.
I'm taking the whole board with me. No,
Congratulations.
We will miss you.
Ellen. Congratulations.
well, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just working less, so.
Can I ask you a question? I don't know if this is the appropriate time. I'm curious about the turnover of the community school coordinators, because I have friends, a lot of friends, I know people who are currently and were previously. And is there some data that shows how long somebody stays and the average? Because I think the key part of this to be effective is having that relationship and having people that are staying, get to know not just the kids, but the families, right? And get to know and build a relationship, build that trust. Is there do you have that? You track today?
We do have that, and we can share that with
See that.
you. I would also recommend that we include the turnover of principals, because the principal
Yeah.
coordinator relationship is really, really critical to
Yeah,
what
it
you're
is the first
describing.
function.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's interesting.
Yeah, we have a list of all the schools and the coordinators going all the way back to 2011 or so.
And is there a way to, so we could hear from coordinators more? I think it would be great
I-
to have,
I totally.
coordinators behind me. Okay. I love the highlights, because I think that's stuff that we wanna, but I think, you know, I work a lot with my coordinators in some of my schools, directly, and I think, it would be nice to just hear from them more. Is
What
there
would that look like?
maybe just a standing agenda item of,
Okay.
are there announcements? Are there things that topics they'd like to see on our agenda? Or even just asking for their feedback on, is there a way to do a coordinator seat on this board? Where they can elect a coordinator that sits with us? Because I just think we always talked about voice, and maybe even a student voice, on, I don't know if there's, and the student councils, or maybe seeing if there's a coordinator that's coming that week, they can maybe bring their president of their student council, or just some way to hear from the folks that we're trying to change the system for. I think it would just help inform our work to hear from students and community school or impact.
So our meetings are only an hour. And
That's
so
okay,
I
good.
think we can talk, I will send out to the entire board, the joint powers agreement, how it was formed, how we add seats to the board, who represents organizations and how that is structured. And then the board will have to vote as a whole.
Yeah.
To decide on, we do only have one open seat, I believe, at the moment. And so we would have to talk about what that would look like as a board, and how it would be structured,
Yeah,
and how it might impact our meetings.
yeah, and maybe before we do all that, just at least a standing agenda item at the very least that says,
Yeah.
are there any?
Announcements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and are the invites to this meeting extended to
This meeting is subject to Open Meetings
Oh,
Act, so
good.
there's a public agenda that goes out that we send to them.
Awesome,
Yes.
so they can join, I mean, I know
Most
there's
of the people
school.
in this room are community school impact coordinators, and, yeah.
Oh, good.
And if we do, moving, to like a regular announcement or wherever we go with this. You guys have meetings on a regular basis where you're all gathered. It would be really great if part of that meeting is to coordinate something
Yeah, that's a great
that
idea.
it's-
They
it's-
tell us.
because individual perspectives are not the same as collective perspectives. And so it'd be good if they organize themselves.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe they can tell us, we want to see this on the agenda, or we wanna talk about this, or, yeah, that's a great, at least a feedback loop with that group. That's all. How often do they meet all together?
Monthly?
Oh, cool.
So
Awesome.
great ideas, and thank you all for being here. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All right.
Thank
Thank you,
you, we're
everybody.
adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
I'm glad I had my budget.